Hey, Angela, thanks for coming onto the YouTube channel today. Hoping to have a great conversation about what you do, how you help entrepreneurs, and highlight what is trademark, patent, how are business owners missing the mark, what can they do really easily to implement, whether they're founders or if they've been in business for 10 plus years. So give us a little background of yourself, why you chose this portion of law to focus, and yeah, go ahead.
Well, thanks for having me, Kirk. Happy to be here. I'm Angela Langlotz. I've been practicing law for 26 years now, and I feel really old whenever I say that. I practice trademark and copyright law, and I've been doing that for, gosh, almost 20 years now. When I first started my practice, I focused on estate and business planning. So I kind of did from the legal side what you do now. So I've seen kind of both sides of the business as far as a business who needs to get a trademark registered and the trademark registration side from my side, right? Um, what I like about my job is that I get to meet a lot of really interesting clients with really interesting businesses. I represent everyone from, brick and mortar businesses, selling wholesale cleaning supplies or spy store equipment or tequila to people who sell stuff online. I represent about 90% of my practice is people who sell stuff online, people who sell t-shirts, people who sell courses and coaching and training, things like that. So my clients are really diverse and they're all really interesting. And I like trademark law because I get to meet really interesting people and help them with their thorny trademark issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine because it's every sector of the marketplace. There's not a place that
Exactly.
that can't use you. So, from a business owner's perspective, when they reach out to you, what are
Mhm.
their misconceptions or what don't they know about trademark or patent that you, if you could, hit them on the head at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey, this will solve this for your business,"
Yeah.
either from lawsuit or somebody saying, "Hey, you're infringing."
Yeah.
What's something that you want business owners to know about trademark and copyright? Um, and kind of, is there stages where you do it? Does a 2-month-old company need to be spending, this energy on this? Do they, is it better spent elsewhere? Is it depending on how much volume they're doing, revenue they're
Mhm.
doing, industry
Yeah.
specific? So help shed light to the entrepreneurs and the business owners who aren't using trademark or copyrights in their business, and what should they start doing?
Yeah. So as a threshold issue, there's always this question of when should we try to register our trademark? We've got a new business. Should we try to register it now? As a threshold issue, you need to make sure that whatever trademark or business name that you plan to market your goods and services under isn't infringing somebody else's trademark. So a lot of times what happens is somebody comes to me and they say, Angela, I've formed an LLC and I'm getting ready to start this business. Now that we formed the LLC and started the business, let's register the trademark. And then sometimes we do a trademark search and we find, oh, we cannot use that trademark because somebody else is already using it for their goods or for similar or related goods. So other people's trademarks expand not only to the goods and services that are listed on their trademark application, but also any reasonable zone of expansion. So let's say, for example, you have a trademark and the trademark covers t-shirts. Well, a reasonable zone of expansion would be not only other clothing items like socks and underwear and sweatpants and sweatshirts, but it might also be things like sunglasses and handbags. That's, a potential. Why? Because consumers are used to seeing the same trademark used on t-shirts and sweatshirts and handbags and sunglasses, right? Like you walk into any Chanel boutique and you're going to see t-shirts, you're going to see sunglasses, you're going to see cosmetics. So all of those things are potentially related goods that then we have to be worried about stepping on other, I call them trademark toes, right? So one of the things I see that business owners mistake most commonly is not doing a trademark search before they choose a name for their product or a name for their business if what they're going to be offering is services. That can be a real problem for a new business owner.
Is that something they can do on their own? Is that something they can throw into? Is that usually something to reach out to you about? You know,
Yeah,
what's
a
kind of
lot
the
of people
easy?
try to do it themselves on the USPTO website. I tell you, they keep saying that, they're improving the search experience. They're not improving anything. The problem is that when you type any term into the USPTO website to go to a trademark search, you're going to get, 8,000 records as a result, and you're going to have to sift through all of those. I actually pay thousands of dollars a year for a special search tool that reaches into the trademark database and pulls out the information that I need, but in a form that's actually useful. So,
No, that's great.
and even then, sometimes we miss things. Why? Because it's sometimes not possible to find absolutely everything. But we're not just looking for exact hits for the trademark, we're looking for anything that's quote unquote confusingly similar. So, and it's hard to know what's confusingly similar if you don't know what the rules are about that. And there are a lot of weird rules about how close you can get to someone else's trademark. In addition to that, depending on what's already in the trademark database, we may be able to register a trademark that's really similar to someone else's if there are already results in the database that are already really close to someone else's trademark, right? So if I go in and I see 15 trademarks for restaurant services that are all really similar, I can make the argument to the trademark examiner, well, what's one more? We've already got 15 owned by 15 different people. My client's not really affecting anybody else's trademark rights because everybody else has very narrow trademark rights because their marks are already almost identical. So it really depends on what we see in the trademark database. It depends on the goods and services, and it depends on what the consumer expectation is. We have to look at all of those things before we decide, can we apply to register this trademark? Is it a good idea to attempt this?
So let me back you up just a slight scope. So if somebody's listening and they're like, "What is a trademark?" I run
Mm,
an HVAC home service company. We're doing air conditioning.
yep.
I've got 15 trucks, and what would my trademark be as a home service company?
Sure. Your trademark is whatever you're using to market your services. So let's say that your trademark, your business name is Buddies AC, right? Then Buddies AC would be your trademark. So a trademark is whatever you're using to identify your goods and services and advertise those to the consumer. That's your trademark.
Okay, very clear. Yes, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then as far as copyright goes, I'm an
Mhm.
HVAC company. I'm
Yep.
quote unquote Buddies AC. I've been in business for 5 years. We're growing every year. Where does copyright come in if it does come into my business?
For the most part, we don't see a lot of copyright issues in home service businesses. We see copyright issues in businesses that produce things like teaching and training and courses and classes and things like that. Copyright, remember, protects creative works that are fixed in a tangible medium of expression. So, not just ideas, but the actual tangible embodiment of whatever that idea is, right? So, you might have an idea for a movie and it has this certain plot line, but it's not capable of being registered with the Copyright Office until it's reduced to some kind of screenplay, right? Like that's what we would apply to register with the Copyright Office. So I do a lot less copyright law than I do trademark law. Trademark law is the bulk of what I do. But there are some businesses, like I have a client who sells lapel pins, and she makes these really cute designs. She's a doctor, and so she gives these out to, and I'm not telling you anything secret or anything like that, but she creates these pins and she sells them on Etsy. right? So she's got all of her designs copyrighted, and we have applied to register those with the Copyright Office to protect them. So that's an example of a business that might need copyright protection for their materials. If you wanted to franchise your home service business and offer your training manuals, teaching manuals, process manuals to other people, you could apply to register those at the Copyright Office and make those part of your franchise package, for example. So that's an example of an instance where maybe a home service business would need copyright protection for some of their stuff.
And so in regards to the pen maker or the lapel maker, so
Mhm.
she's on Etsy, she's been cruising around for a couple years selling these, gizmos, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden she sees somebody start creating something pretty similar.
Yep.
This gives her the right to tell them, hey, you're infringing on our trademark. Don't do that.
Yeah, not only that, but she can approach the platform where the infringing products are being sold and say, hey, um, this person is infringing my copyright. They've copied one of my designs. Take it down unless you want to be liable, platform, for contributory copyright infringement. And they don't want to be liable for that, so they'll take it down. So part of the reason why people get trademarks and copyrights is it makes it a lot easier to address other people who are infringing, intentionally or not, your brand name or your creative works in the case of copyright.
Yeah, very clear. So, um, business owner Buddies has been in business for 10 years. He's got all of
Mhm.
his trucks wrapped, his going around through business, and he didn't do the due diligence to go and get everything trademarked and officially filed.
Mhm.
And give me some horror stories that you've been able to kind of see or be approached to that you've seen business owners because they didn't know this stuff, it ended up
Yeah.
setting them back with their branding and their company brand.
Yeah, it can be a real problem when people don't check their business name for copyright infringements. I mean, not copyright infringements, sorry, trademark infringements. See, even I get it confused
Yeah.
before they start doing business, because what can happen is sometimes when the client approaches me, they're like, yeah, I've been using this name for 5 years, blah, 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 and I want to get the name registered as a trademark. I go into the trademark database and I say, whoa, business owner, I'm so sorry to tell you this big problem. There's somebody who's got a trademark registration. See, I almost did it again. Someone who's got a trademark registration and they've had it for 7 years. They registered it. That means they have nationwide trademark rights. So you need to do a rebrand before they find out about your use and send you a cease and desist letter and maybe try to get damages from you for your infringement, even though you didn't know, it's still an infringement of their trademark. So usually what I do in that situation is I'm like, whoa, we need to fix this right away. You either change your branding on your terms and on your timeline, or you can wait for the other business owner to find out, but they're going to insist that you change all of your branding on their timeline. And that's always really ugly because rebranding is expensive, it's time consuming. You lose a lot of goodwill because you've built this business with your name, right? And people might recognize you and your brand. And so it's a significant blow to a business, especially a home services business that probably has like a Yelp page and a Google My Business with all of these reviews. It's a real hardship to do a rebrand. So that's why I am begging, I am begging the business owners out there that before you adopt, if you're starting a new company, before you adopt a name, find a trademark attorney that you trust and that you like, and have them do a trademark clearance search so that you can actually check and see if that name is being used. If it is, pick something else. Like, don't even mess around with that stuff. It's just gonna be a huge headache later. So it's better to find out that you have to rebrand, before you've invested a lot of time and energy and effort into building a brand that really doesn't belong to you. And that's another reason to register, is because when you register, you get a piece of paper. It's called a trademark certificate. Looks like this. They don't actually give out paper certificates anymore, though. As a matter of course, you have to ask for one special. But anyway, this is what it looks like. Okay, it's got a seal. If you, whoops, sorry, I'm
Cool.
trying to focus. Oh, here
Yeah.
it is. So it's got a seal on it. Okay. And it says what the trademark is and, what the trademark covers. This one covers dietary supplements, nutritional supplements. Um, says who the trademark owner is, says when it was registered, the dates of first use, all of that. So it says this is your proof. This certificate is your proof that you are the owner of the trademark. If you don't have one of these, okay, you're going to probably end up fighting with somebody else about who the owner of your trademark is. That is super expensive. It's a lot cheaper. It's, less than $5,000 to get a trademark registered. Okay.
Right.
I don't understand why people don't just like, I know nobody wants to spend money on a lawyer, but it's so much cheaper than fighting about your trademark rights. This
Well,
is proof.
and you mentioned goodwill, and
Mhm.
goodwill is an under developed idea for most business owners as they're
Yeah,
growing and scaling. So can you expand on goodwill and
sure.
what that is and why it's important?
Yeah. So when we value a business, what we do is we take the value of the business, we subtract out the property, plant, and equipment, and whatever is left over is goodwill. Okay. Your trademark is part of that goodwill. It is a measure of your reputation and the esteem with which others hold you, right? Like if you're Nike, sure, you've got factories and all kinds of stuff, but you've also got your brands, right? Like you have a market capitalization for your stock, and only part of that is represented by property, plant, and equipment. The rest of it is pure goodwill represented by your trademarks, right? And your reputation. Your reputation is carried by your trademark. Like when I don't have any shoes around here, or I'd hold one up, but so you've got the three stripy shoes, and then you've got the swooshy shoes, and you know which brands I'm talking about without even me saying it, right?
Right.
So your part of what your business has a reputation for is represented with your trademark. Like I know, for example, as a consumer, that the swooshy shoes have a really wide heel. And so I get blisters when I wear the swooshy shoes because my heel moves around. And if I wear the three stripy shoes, I don't get those blisters because they have a narrower heel, right? They're just different. So that's the kind of thing that a trademark tells me. It tells me which shoe is going to fit my narrow little heels better, right?
Right.
Or a trademark might say, hey, you're going to get really good bargains here. That's Walmart, right? Or hey, you're going to pay a little more, but you're going to have a really great shopping experience here. That's Nordstrom, right? So brands tell us all kinds of things about the target market and who we're serving. And that is part of the business reputation. That is what we call goodwill. It's a business, it's an intangible asset that every business has. It's basically your reputation.
Absolutely. So, going back a little bit, and we'll just stick with the Buddies brand, air conditioning.
Mhm.
So, let's say they've been operating for 5 or 6 years. They reach out to you and you run the search. And let's say they have that Buddies AC LLC.
Mhm.
That's what they have with the whoever their state is. Let's say Arizona, where I'm at. They went to the
Sure.
Arizona Corporation Commission and got Buddies AC LLC,
Sure.
and then they work with you and you're like, hey, there's another Buddies
Yeah.
AC. Do they just need to do a rebrand as far as doing business as?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So people don't realize that they don't need to have the same LLC name as their brand name. So you can be Buddies AC LLC, registered with the Secretary of State of Arizona, and maybe you're doing business as um, Big Buds AC. I'm just making stuff up over here.
great.
Okay.
I love it on
Big
the
Buds,
fly.
not Big Butts, Big Buds. Okay. Because Buddies was taken. So now we're going to be Big Buds. So Big Buds might just say, we are Buddies AC LLC, DBA, Big Buds. And so they change their branding and they rewrap all the trucks and they all say Big Buds now. And all their invoices say Big Buds and the website says Big Buds and they give out pens and they say Big Buds, right?
Right. Great. So there is
Okay.
confusion on that because some people think, man, I have to completely start over, redo
No, you
everything.
don't.
Right.
You don't.
And so I
No,
just
no,
wanted
no.
you to kind of highlight that.
Yeah.
So goodwill, is, I call it as like the feeling you get.
Uh-huh, sure.
And
Yep.
so that's why people who have like social media or big branding behind their name can actually
Mhm.
trademark their personal names.
Sure. Yeah, you
Um,
can register anything that's distinctive for a trademark. So if I wanted to register Angela Langlotz for giving all kinds of advice online, I don't know what we'd call that, giving legal advice online. I could do that, right?
right.
You can register like Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a registered trademark for, live seminars about, I don't even know, I'm just making stuff up, live seminars about self-improvement. Okay. And he probably has books and, all of that. So, yeah, so you can register your own name as a trademark. You can register anything that's distinctive as a trademark. You can't register things that are generic or descriptive. So if your name is OTTO and you you want to register the word auto OTTO for your car dealership, that's not going to work because auto sounds like auto, right? And that's generic for automobiles. So yeah, there are some things that are not registerable, but I'm pretty creative. We can generally find a way to get just about everything registered. We may have to disclaim certain descriptive parts of the trademark, but there are all kinds of things that we can do to get trademarks registered. The entire thing might not be registerable as a word, for example, but we can register logos that incorporate words and then disclaim the words. There's all kinds of things that we can do. But again, it also depends on what's already in the trademark database because we don't want to apply to register something that has no hope of registration um, because it's just a waste of the client's time and money. So unless I think I can get it registered, I'm going to say, hold up, let's pick something else. We cannot get this registered.
Right. And if you don't mind, intertwine intellectual property and kind of highlight that for the business owner to start understanding IP in regards
Sure.
to their trademark and copyright.
Yeah, so think of IP as an umbrella term, right? So there's an umbrella, it's called IP, and then underneath IP are things like trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, patents, those sorts of things. So IP, intellectual property, is a term that encompasses any of those intangibles.
And so when you're talking about those intangibles, does it give you as a business owner, let's say your grandma taught you how to make the world's best chocolate chip cookie. And she gave you
Yeah.
the very specific recipe to get the very specific flour from some very specific place. And this is a secret. How does that
Hmm.
intertwine into, privacy in your IP, in your knowledge base that you have to make your
Yeah.
business profitable?
Okay, so trade secrets are a form of intellectual property, but they're unregistered. Why? Because when we register it, we have to tell, right? Like you cannot patent a recipe, it's not patentable. You can't copyright a recipe under US copyright law. Recipes are not sufficiently creative enough to register a copyright for, and you can't trademark a recipe. That's not a thing. Okay. So in that case, we have to keep it a secret. So somebody at Coca-Cola knows the formula and they've been sworn to secrecy. It's locked in the vault. It's probably running around some chemist's head. He's the only one that knows. Anybody else who wants to know is going to have to get into the vault. Everybody's sworn to secrecy, but they've kept that secret for, over 100 years now. So it is possible. It's hard though. It's really hard.
I think there was
But
initially cocaine put in it. I don't know if
yeah,
it
yeah,
did.
it did have Coke in it, which is why they called it Coca-Cola, right? Funny.
Yeah,
Used to be illegal.
right. Yeah.
Anyway, actually, it wasn't illegal then. It became illegal later, I'm guessing, and that's why they stopped putting the cocaine in it.
I wonder they were
But
all
just
skinny back in the 60s and 50s.
right, they were all coked up.
I love your humor.
Anyway, but yeah, if you've got grandma's secret chocolate chip recipe and you don't want anybody to know about it, then don't tell anybody about it. But it's not protectable by any intellectual property mechanism here in the United States, except keeping it secret, right? Because
Right.
when you register a patent for something, you have to disclose the entire, scheme, I'll call it the scheme, is, nothing else. You have to disclose the entire technology in order to get the patent, because that tells you what's protected. So basically, a patent is a limited monopoly on certain technology or certain designs in certain cases. So, it's not permanent. You're basically exchanging the right to have a monopoly for the disclosure, right?
Right.
So that's what you're getting. You're disclosing the particulars of the technology and telling everybody how to build it in exchange for a 20-year monopoly. That's it.
Right. And drug companies are notorious for that.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
physical products.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it
and
is a physical product. It's
right,
just something, it's a consumable physical product, right?
right. So in Arizona, if I remember correctly, we have a big, I don't even know if they're chain outside of here, but it's called Oregano's. It's kind of an Italian food place,
Mm,
total 40s, 50s feel when you walk in.
like
And
fast casual kind of thing.
yeah, I would say, but maybe
Okay.
more casual. It's definitely sit down and hang out for a bit.
Okay.
Amazing pizzas and pasta
You like the
dishes.
pizza.
But at the very end, they used to have what was called the pizookie,
A
um,
Pizookie. Okay.
which is like a massive, soft baked cookie where they put ice cream on it. Well,
Oh, okay.
there's
Like a
another,
pizza and a cookie.
yes, it's
Got
a,
it. Got it. Pizookie. Okay, I get it.
and so there's another chain restaurant in our town called BJ's Brewery, and
Uh-huh.
they have a handful of those all over. Um, Trying to think of what that's like, but it's kind of like you walk in, there's 100 taps, kind of like a yard
Right.
house.
I'm familiar.
Okay.
I've seen them. Yeah, they
And
have them around.
okay, and so they spat over
Pizookie.
Pazuki, and it
Sure.
ended up having to deal with all of this. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now when you go to Oregano's, you can't order a Pazuki.
Oh, you
It's
can't?
one or the other. It's the
Because
same
because
thing.
if they started the Pizookie, okay, here's the thing about trademarks. You don't actually have to register a trademark to have trademark rights. It's kind of stupid not to register it though, because when you don't register it, other people can't find you in the trademark database and avoid you, right? They may not know, like BJ's probably didn't know that Oregano's was using the term Pizookie. Maybe somebody just thought of it and they started using it too, not knowing that somebody else already had the rights. So basically, those kinds of rights are called common law trademark rights. They're basically rights that you get just from using the trademark in commerce. So if you're selling cookies that are using the mark Pizookie, then you have rights to the mark Pizookie. But here's the thing, you only have rights in those geographic areas where you are actually using the trademark. So let's say you're only using it in Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. You would only have common law rights if you don't register in those places where you're actually using the trademark, right? So somebody else could potentially in who's using it in Oregon and Washington apply to register for a federal trademark for the word Pizookie. They would have federal trademark rights in every place where the prior user wasn't using Pizookie.
Gotcha.
And then there's also some arguments that the prior user could make that, well, because they're on an interstate highway, like all of their restaurants are located on an interstate highway, that they actually have interstate commerce rights. And then they would have to go into federal court and fight about who has the better trademark rights. And they're going to spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting about the word Pizookie
Right.
when the original Pizookie owners could have just applied to register it with the trademark office and it would have been a slam dunk, right?
Right. And that was one of the first cases where I saw, and this was, I forget how many years ago, maybe
Mm,
5 or 10 years ago,
sure.
where when you went to Oregano's, I don't think they allowed you couldn't Pazuki wasn't on the menu. It was
Mm.
something else. So
So there was some settlement or something there. Who
yeah, and I
knows?
don't know if BJ's actually had the trademark prior. I don't know, but it
Maybe
was
they
over the
did.
cookie, the baked cookie.
Right.
But that's the important of goodwill. And
Yeah.
for a lot of people, when you say go get a Pazuki, you're
Right.
saying oregano's or
Or
um,
BJ's, whoever was using it first, right? And that's really important. Like people Like if you said, I'm going to go buy some Air Jordans, like I don't have to tell you those are Nike shoes. Everybody knows that's a Nike trademark, right?
Right.
I'm not going to buy some Adidas Air Jordans. They're going to be Nike Air Jordans because that's a famous trademark of Nike. So it's that's what's called a source identifier. Like we hear the trademark and we know the source of the goods that are branded with that trademark. So if I'm going to go buy Air Jordans the trademark, I'm going right down to the Nike store to buy those shoes, right? I'm not going to the Skechers store or to the Adidas store. I'm going to the Nike store. So that tells me that trademark is associated with Nike. So it tells me where I'm going to have to go to buy those shoes.
Right. And
So if I
time,
want a Pizookie, I'm going to have to go to Oregano's or BJ's or whatever. Sorry, I didn't mean
right.
to interrupt you,
No, no,
Kirk.
you're good. And speaking of Michael Jordan and Nike, I don't even know if he's involved with any of that. It's really his personal goodwill from being just an amazing basketball player.
Yeah.
And so where do royalties fit in? How does one view royalties? Obviously it might be hard for a HVAC company,
Right.
Buddies, if we're staying with him, but who
Yeah.
knows? Let's just say Buddies invents some AC product tool to help
Mhm.
change out a flux capacitor faster.
A
Um,
filter,
yes.
whatever.
And so they 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 have a physical product,
Mhm.
or one of the things I was looking at the other day was um songs, and how
Yep.
songs can be sold, and you can own a song and collect royalties from its
Yep.
streams. And
Yeah.
so how does royalty play in as an asset for somebody who's making? I have a friend in the roofing business who's making a roofing jig
Mhm.
to put on the roof and help roofers, move faster and less labor. What does that look like when you're creating, trademarks and patents? And then how do you monetize that long term? Either you already mentioned franchise is one way,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
how does the physical owning of that translate into a long-term asset for a family, potentially multi-generational?
Sure, sure. So if you are an inventor and you invented a thing, a roofing jig, you've got 20 years to license that out to maybe a manufacturer and you get part of the proceeds from the sales of that product. You can have that kind of a deal. You can manufacture them yourself and sell them. And sometimes here's where trademark comes in. So trademarks can be really valuable. Like if you have so you've got your 20 years that your patent is good for, and you also registered a trademark for the name of that product, and that's what it's known for, right? Like everybody wants that product, they want that name, and they want it from you because you own the trademark and you have the good reputation. So there's other knockoffs out there after 20 years, but the OG trademark, first manufactured thing, we'll call it the Air Jordan of roofing jigs, right? Let's just say it's Big Daddy's jigs, right? So Big Daddy has, that's the brand, Big Daddy. He makes roofing jigs, and so everybody wants the Big Daddy roofing jig. Nobody wants the knockoff. So the trademark sometimes can be more valuable over time than the patent. The patent expires in 20 years. The trademark potentially never expires. If you keep using that trademark, you can keep renewing it at the trademark office, and you have trademark rights in perpetuity so long as you're actually using the trademark to sell goods and services. Like look at Coca-Cola as a for example. Coca-Cola has had that trademark for over 100 years, right? So they have 100 years of goodwill. It's one of the most recognized brands on the planet. You would have to go deep into the jungles of Borneo to find somebody who does not know what Coca-Cola is,
And still
right?
a bottle probably still floated up and landed on there.
Right? Message in the bottle. Everybody
Yeah.
knows what it is. But other brands like Little Trees air fresheners. Everybody who grew up from the 60s on knows those little tree air fresheners. They have huge intellectual property value in their trademark because nobody else can make a tree shaped air freshener. They own the entire tree shaped market, and they are very vigorous about enforcing their trademark rights to that shape. Okay.
So the
There have been
actual
lots.
value is in the trademark long
Yes,
term.
I think.
Initially, to give you runway is patent,
Yep. You
and
get 20
then
years to build that brand with your patent. And keep in mind, too, it doesn't actually have to be a patented thing. Like, I don't think Little Tree's air freshener was ever patented, but they've marketed the heck out of that brand, you know?
I'm thinking of Kleenex right now.
Oh, Kleenex. Yeah. I
It's not
mean, look,
even that's like Band-Aid is a
right.
brand.
It's a Band-Aid brand bandages, though. It's
Right.
Kleenex brand tissue. This is not a Kleenex, right? Pretend I'm waving around a Kleenex. It's not a Kleenex. It is a facial tissue branded with Kleenex.
So
Okay.
that's the
Kleenex brand
value.
facial tissue. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Very clear. Very good.
Yeah.
Man, you kind of uncover a lot of nuances and kind of understanding how the market really works and where the value is
Yeah.
in what companies build. So,
Yeah.
that was really the highlight today is what are we talking about? How can the business owners who are pushing the needle and growing and scaling, how can they avoid the arrows, that
Yeah.
that can hit them? And that's what business is it's getting hit with an arrow,
Yep.
pulling it out and keep going, hit with an
Soldiering
arrow.
on.
That's right. Hit a
Yeah.
barricade, go around it. But you're
Yep.
saying you're saying the simple solution for a company who is serious about growing market share is a casual conversation about trademarking
Right.
what we have,
Yeah.
doing the search, getting the certificate, and
Mhm.
making sure that they can march on without any arrows, interrupting their march.
Yeah, it's especially important when you go to sell because no business buyer wants to buy a trademark lawsuit. Okay. So if you have one of these, what that says to the business buyer is, hey, you're not going to have to worry about a trademark lawsuit over this IP that's coming along with this company that you're buying because they have a registered trademark. Okay. So having a registered trademark gives a potential business buyer a lot of confidence. They're not buying a trademark headache. They're not buying a trademark lawsuit, which could potentially take years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to resolve, depending on what the issues are. You're buying a clean business with a known trademark registration, and that's something you're just not going to have to worry about in the future, so long as you keep up with the renewals, right? Some people completely forget to renew their trademarks. That can be problematic. Then they've had to fight about trademarks. In fact, that's a good horror story to tell. I had a client who didn't renew his trademark. It was during COVID. It slipped his mind. He just didn't do it. He was an attorney too. Again, I'm not telling any secrets here, but he was an attorney. He just neglected to renew it. He neglected to renew it. Some other user said, oh, it didn't get renewed. I'm going to apply. So now we've got this new application out there. The client comes to me and says, hey, I let my application lapse accidentally. Can I renew now? And I looked, and there's a grace period, a 6-month grace period. You can pay a fee and renew the trademark during the grace period. But if you miss the grace period, you're cooked and you just need to reapply. So I said to my client, listen, we need to reapply, but then we also need to monitor this other trademark application because when it gets published for opposition, we need to oppose. We need to send them a cease and desist letter, tell them, listen, you're still using the trademark. This other applicant, we'll call him new applicant doesn't have the right to the trademark because you're still using it. You still have rights at common law, even though your trademark registration lapse. So, we sent new applicant a cease and desist letter. New applicant basically said, go pound sand. I'm going to wait to get the opposition. I'm going to make you oppose because, I think my mark is registrable. And I said, fine, cowboy, go ahead. We opposed. And my client won the opposition based on his 20 years of prior use. But at the same time, it cost the client thousands of dollars that he wouldn't needed to have spent had he just renewed his trademark on time. Okay. So
So
my
talk about
client did
that.
eventually, yeah, he did eventually get the trademark re-registered. Okay. But he had to spend thousands of dollars.
So
Go
what
ahead.
is that timeline? Somebody goes, Big Buddies gets his AC trademarked.
Mhm.
It's not a one and done, it sounds like.
No. So at 5 years, there's a trademark renewal. And then, so the trademark renewal period is a year long. It opens at year 5 and closes at year 6. There is a 6-month grace period. If you miss the deadline at year 6, you have until year 6.5 to renew. Okay. You pay a fee, it's a penalty. They slap you on the wrist and they say, don't do that again. You have to pay us extra to renew. It's $100. It's not that big of a deal, but still, they make you pay. And then, we renew again. The next renewal period starts at year 9 and ends at year 10. Again, there's a 6-month grace period, but every 10 years thereafter, you've got to renew that trademark application. So you need to pay attention to those dates in your calendar. Your trademark attorney will probably remind you,
Is that
but
something that you do?
yeah, absolutely. But sometimes trademark attorneys die, right? I'm still here, obviously. But what if your trademark attorney is elderly and they pass away and the practice got sold to some knucklehead attorney who's not keeping up with all the docketing? Okay. They may miss the deadline. So it's really important for trademark owners to know what those deadlines are and make sure that several people in the company know the importance of meeting that deadline. Okay.
Right.
Another thing that trademark owners do, they don't do it on purpose, but it can really damage their trademark rights. So let's say that they have a logo trademark. I'm looking around here for a logo trademark. Okay, here's a logo trademark. All right, do you see this? It says Spiloto, okay? That's a logo trademark. Sometimes employees get creative with the logos. So the trademark owner will register a logo and they'll have the logo. And then some employee will come along and they'll go, I think I'm going to tweak it just a little bit. And they tweak it just a little bit. And the business owner goes, oh, I like that. That's good, right? It comes time to renew the trademark. What they filed 5 years ago and the creative license taken by the employee, they don't match anymore.
Right.
So if you have a logo trademark, you need to make sure if you get a new logo, if you alter the logo in any manner, you really need to reapply for the trademark. Why? Because you've changed the logo trademark. We can't renew it anymore because it's not the same. In order to renew the trademark, we have to show use of the trademark exactly how it's registered. So if you go to change it, you need to make sure that your trademark attorney files a new trademark application so that, when you go to renew, it's not like, oh my God, we just lost our trademark, right? Like it's really important to do that. So it's a good idea if you're a business owner and you have a logo, have a brand handbook, okay, that says, listen, like drill this into everybody's head, make the entire creative team sign off on this, that the logo must be used exactly this way. Don't change it. I know you love to be creative. That's why we hired you. Don't change this. Be creative with everybody else, everything else, not with this, right?
And so,
Unless you tell us and we okay it and we run it by the trademark attorney, right?
right. And so for the individual who's pumping out new ideas, new courses,
Mhm.
as they add a new course each year, that needs to get brought under the umbrella.
Well, you can, it depends on how you're using the trademarks, right? Like, let's use Nike for an example. They have their main brand, it's Nike. And then they have all these other brands. Like they have I'll call them registered trademarks. They have registered trademarks for many of their shoe models, right? Like they've got Air Max, Air Jordan, Cortez. I don't know what else they have. I'm not
Tennis
a
and
tennis shoe
golf.
person. Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
can go off on all this stuff, right? But they've got a ton of sub trademarks. So the shoe might have the Nike brand on it, the Nike word mark on it. It might have the swoosh on it, but then it also has the jumping Jordan guy. You know what I mean,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, the
Where he's slam dunking.
okay. Yeah, yeah. That guy, that logo is also on the shoe. So you can use multiple trademarks on one product. It happens all the time. Like, let me see if no, that's not it. I'm trying to find something that has multiple trademarks on it. Um, this is a pen. Oh, here's a good example. I don't know if you can see this or not.
Yeah.
So, and it's backwards. So this is a Pentel pen. It's got the Pentel trademark on it. Where is it? Here. Sorry, I was kind of covering it up. So on the barrel, do you see
Mm-hmm.
right here? It's got the
Yep.
Pentel trademark on it. And then it also says Energel. I'm sure that's a registered trademark too. So it's got two trademarks on here. So we've got a model name. So we've got the main brand name, which is Pentel. And then we've got Energel as
Right.
kind of a sub brand, right? So that's an example of a product that has more than one trademark on it, just like the Nike shoes or the Nike clothing, right? It might be branded Just Do It, Nike, and then the swoosh. That's three trademarks on the piece of clothing. Okay.
Gotcha.
So it just depends on how you want to use your trademarks. You might have an umbrella brand, and then you might, as a branding strategy, have sub brands like Tony Robbins does this, right? Like he's got his Tony Robbins umbrella brand. And then he's got different courses that he probably has registered as trademarks. I should do a case study on him as a video. But he's got, Awaken the Giant Within. I know that's one of his course names. So he probably has a registered trademark for that course name. And he probably produces, journals and other things that go along with the course, right?
Right.
So that's an example of a branding strategy that he has that might not be appropriate for everybody. Sometimes I see clients come in and they're just kind of like, I want to register a trademark for everything. And I'm like, I can take your money for that. But let's talk about your overall strategy. Like, what are you really doing here? So I work with
Right.
my clients to figure out what makes sense because sometimes it doesn't make sense to register a trademark for everything. If this is something that you plan to offer every year, kind of in perpetuity, like Tony Robbins, his Awaken the Giant Within stuff, he's offered that for like well over 20 years, right? So it makes sense for him to register a trademark for that because remember, trademarks have to be renewed and they have to be maintained and they have to be defended. So if you have all of these trademarks, it could be a big and expensive job to maintain all of those and also to defend all of those. Because remember, you can't just let other people use your trademark. You have to make them stop if they infringe, right? Or else you lose your trademark rights. So if you've got, 50 trademarks out there and you're Nike, you probably have a whole IP department that does all of that for you. But if you're, Big Joe's AC, you might not want to have 10 trademarks that you have to keep track of and enforce and renew. It just becomes a big thing. And, unless you've got staff to help you with that stuff, maybe the better idea is to like pick one or two things that are core brands of your business and enforce those and develop those rather than sort of going willy-nilly and saying, oh, I want it all. Like, I mean, maybe that's a good strategy and maybe it isn't, but it really depends on the individual business. And so I try to help my clients sort of manage that and get their head around the possibilities and also what makes sense and what might not make sense for their business.
Okay, let's land the plane here and wrap up a little bit. So
Okay.
somebody here is listening and they're like, man, I've been operating my, buddy's AC company for 5 years and I don't have any of this and I got 10 branded trucks.
Yeah.
Let's play the hypothetical. They reach out, they call you. What are kind of quickly time frames of what's going to happen over the
Sure.
next, let's just say what process prior to getting the certificate in their hand?
Yeah, so we do a trademark clearance search. If there's no concerns about infringements or anything like that, we go ahead and we file the trademark. These days, we're hearing back from the trademark office in 4 to 6 months. The trademark office may come back and say, yes, we don't have any problems. We're sending your mark to publication. I'll explain what that is in a minute. Or they may have things that they want us to change. They may want us to describe the goods differently. They may want us to describe the logo drawing differently because we have to describe that logo in words, right? Sometimes that's kind of fun. So sometimes they have changes that they want to make to that. Sometimes they come back and say, no, we're refusing your trademark because we think it's too close to this other thing. I probably already warned the client about that, right? So I've probably already looked at the record and said, listen, we're probably going to get a rejection for this mark. However, here's how I think I can overcome that, right? And I'm almost always right about that. I've been doing this for so long that I have a really good feeling about what I can defend and what I can't defend as far as getting it through the trademark process. And I'm almost never wrong about that. So if if the trademark examiner says, this is too close to somebody else's mark, someone's using Big Bud for face powder, and we think your plumbing business is an infringement. Sometimes it actually is really just that ridiculous too with the trademark examiners. I'm like, what are y'all doing over there? I don't know. But yeah, I can respond and say, no, it's really not an infringement. I can give all kinds of reasons, and there are all kinds of reasons why something isn't an infringement. And then we respond. And then once the trademark examiner accepts the response, they don't always accept the response. In that case, we have to abandon. But, like I said, I'm pretty good at getting these trademarks registered. So it will be then published for opposition. That is a process where the mark is published in an official trademark gazette so that anybody else who might have an objection can raise their hand and say, I object. They've got 30 days to do that. It hardly ever happens. It's not a big concern. If it does happen, then there's a whole opposition process at the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board. That's like a mini litigation, but like I said, it almost never happens. Once the trademark finishes the publication period with no objections from other people, then the trademark issues, okay? If we've proven use at the time of filing, then we don't have anything else to do after publication except get the trademark certificate issued. If we haven't proven use at time of filing, because we can file based on an intent to use the mark in commerce, we don't have to actually be using the trademark when we file the application. We can file based on an intent to use the mark in the future. Then after the publication period, the examiner will issue something called a notice of allowance. That is the invitation from the trademark office to show us their use. Okay, so then we show the trademark examiner. We have 6 months to do that. We can renew that for successive 6-month periods up to 5 times. After that, if we haven't shown use in 3 years, that's it. No more chances. But typically, clients will be able to prove use. And then once the use is proven and accepted, we get the trademark certificate issued. So all in all, it's taking these days about 12 months.
It's about a year.
Yeah.
But as soon as you
Unless the client
initiate,
doesn't show use, right? If the client doesn't show use, then
Right.
it may take longer, right?
but when you initially submit, does that kind of earmark them for what we're submitting, like kind of like a trademark pending?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
So let's say Buddy's AC reaches out to you and wants that trademarked,
Yeah.
and their application is submitted, and you've got the ball moving. And for some reason, 6 months into that process, another company submits. Will they have like the first right to use that since their application was already in process?
Yeah. So as soon as we file, we get something called a priority date. And you can think of that as like your feet in line for that trademark.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like about a year out, once you start to get your certificate, assuming everything is smooth and you're using your patent.
You're using your trademark. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, sorry, trademark.
See, it's easy to get confused, right?
Right. Well, like you said, there's a big umbrella, and it's all
Yeah.
for the business owner based on what they're doing, natures of the business. So Well, cool. Thank you for sharing today and
You're welcome.
peeling back the onion layers of this subject that is kind of overmissed by a lot of companies. So, how do
Yeah.
our listeners reach out and find you? How do they get a hold of you? What is your brand? What is your trademark?
My trademark is Trademark Doctor. You can find me online at trademarkdoctor.net. You can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/ at Trademark Doctor. I've got over 600 videos about trademark and copyright law. And you can contact me at my contact page if I can be of service. You can schedule a time to talk with me and we can explore your trademark opportunities.
Great. Are you on social at all?
I am. I'm on Facebook. So I'm Trademark Doctor, facebook.com/Trademark Doctor. And I'm on YouTube, not YouTube. I already said that. Instagram as well. But I really hang out on Facebook.
Cool. Well, great. Thank you again. Like I said, very cool to get under the microscope
Yeah.
and share with the listeners what this means for their business, how to avoid these arrows, and hopefully they will reach out and start the
Yeah.
conversation with you and your company.
Okay. Well, thanks, Kurt. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Angela. Have an amazing day.